Okay, hello there, everyone. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff that I need to let out on why 2022 what really wasn't a good year for, um, I guess me and maybe a lot of other people. But I'm going to go straight to the point, blank obvious on why I think this year was really really bad. Um, the first point I want to make, and I tried telling my friends this, but they just blew me off on this topic, was the economy. Not that many people realized that we entered a recession this year. Mm, the fact that you had record high inflation for the first time in 40 years, you've had people on the left try to ignore it, and it was really a hard topic for a lot of people to discuss this year. And you know, how could you be a person who doesn't complain about the price of your grocery bills or your restaurant bills going up? Because I certainly noticed it this year. From 7-Eleven to the supermarket to even Dollar Tree. Well, that was last year, Dollar Tree, but the restaurants, yeah, I mean, everything's gone up in price this year. It's been a disaster. And the war in Ukraine made things a lot worse. And especially how Ukraine and Russia do supply a lot of the world's oil. That's why the price of gas went up this year. Would I have ever imagined seeing $5 a gallon in New York this year? I did. I certainly did, and that was really bad. And now we're going to be in a rude awakening in New York. The price is supposed to jump, I think, 18 cents, something like that, sometime the first week of the new year. And it's going to be a real shocker that um, I've been seeing the price lately somewhere in the, I'd say it's getting close to $3, but it's going to be bad. I mean, we're going to be paying 3.20 something a gallon sometime, I think, by early January. And let's hope we can get that price down to hopefully below 2.99 a gallon, because later on in the year, I think it was mostly from, you could say, May to June, the prices were going up, and then they started to go down a little bit. And of course, there was, when I saw 2.99 a gallon, I was completely shocked. This was sometime in, I think, July or August. And it was, you know, we gotta hope, and this is one of the things that I want to see in the new year. This is my message to Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. Guys, just negotiate and end this war already, because this is getting ridiculous. I feel so bad for the Ukrainian people that they dealt with what they had to deal with. But one thing's for sure, I'm hoping the new Congress is going to stop giving money to Ukraine, because that's one of the other factors on why the inflation has completely gone up. The president pretty much almost shut down the Keystone Oil pipeline production, and that was another reason why inflation went up. And this was an issue that I tried telling people when I was running for New York State Senate, was blame the federal government, blame the president, blame him for cutting back on our oil production. That's why the price of oil went up besides the war. So it's, listen, everybody thinks that, oh, I'm a big fan of race cars and, big old pickup trucks, and I'm not sold on electric cars. I'm sorry, but I saw, well, I actually, no, I heard something on the radio the other day where it was cold in Virginia and this guy couldn't even start up his Tesla. So I'm not completely sold on electric cars. What we need to do is bring back, and I've been saying this for a while, we need to bring back the rear-wheel drive full-size sedan like the Lincoln Town car. And, like the cars we had 30, 40, even 50 years ago. Those were doable. And they had big trunks. You could put your groceries in them. Why do we need an SUV? Maybe for long distance travel, but that's another thing I wish the automakers would do next year. Show some concepts. Give us what a full-size sedan could look like. Because, I miss those type of cars. Those cars are doable. They're meant for daily driving. I'll give an example. Cadillac Fleetwood. Anybody remember those? Those were doable cars. So, yeah, we need to try to have those discussions next year on, how can we keep the gas combustible engine? Because we can't keep relying on pickup trucks. We can't keep relying on these big luxury SUVs. We just can't. You can have a full-size sedan. Chevy Caprice, those were good cars, but I think those were front wheel. If you're in a front wheel drive car, if you get rear-ended, it's not a good thing. I'm sorry. But, yeah. Overall, let's hope the new Congress can stop giving money away to Ukraine, because something it's got to give to try to help us. Putting America first like we used to. We used to have that in this country, but now we seem we don't do that anymore. We have to focus on, in the new year, lowering the price of goods, food, electronics, prescription drugs, diapers, baby formula. The baby formula shortage. Oh my goodness. I had a newborn in my family this year. I was worried my newborn cousin wasn't going to have the baby formula. Thankfully, my cousins in the Upper East Side got tipped off where to find it, but that was a whole different story. So, in the new year, we also got to focus on putting people back to work. Go back to fix the supply chain. We can't have another year of this. It has to be fixed. So, that's how I feel about the economy. We need to get out of this recession, or the recession's just going to keep lingering on. Do I think the Fed's going to keep raising interest rates? Yes. And we'll see how it goes, because I think Powell's going to raise the rates again. He'll probably do it in January. He'll probably do it in February. I can't predict what will happen at the end of the first quarter, and then I can't predict what will happen in April and May. I can't. I don't know what will happen. Will the war in Ukraine end finally? I hope it does. But the United States, again, cannot keep giving money to Ukraine. It has to stop. It has to stop. And I agree with my fellow Republicans. It has to stop. We can't keep giving money to them. That speech last week where Zelensky was talking to Congress. Enough. Stop it. We have to we have to focus on cutting spending. And if it means cutting programs on the federal level, then do it. Because this has to stop. You know, it's a joke. You know, our debt is a complete joke. Right now, we're paying $31 trillion. The way things are going right now. $31 trillion. So, we need a surplus like we had back in the 90s. Why can't the Democrats and Republicans come together like they did 30 years ago and compromise on cutting spending? You know, we need to work together. And I'm hoping we'll see how it goes with the new Congress. Obviously, things are a mess right now with the Republicans. I'm sure you're aware of two situations. If you've been under a bubble, I'll quickly go over it because we're going to move on to what could happen with politics next year. So, first things first, let's talk about Speaker of the House. If you've been under a rock, the Republicans right now are a mess. They're trying to force Marjorie Taylor Greene to be the next Speaker of the House. They think that Kevin McCarthy is a return to the status quo. They're supposed to make a decision on Tuesday next week, the 3rd. And it's been crazy thinking that I've been hearing now for the past couple of weeks that Marjorie could get the gavel. I mean, I wish her well if she gets the gavel. Don't get me wrong. I mean, she's done crazy things in the past. But I don't know how I would feel about Marjorie getting the gavel. I think there needs to be more people open for the job. I mean, I certainly would wish Kevin McCarthy the best if, let's say, things go different and he's given the opportunity to serve as the next Speaker of the House. But the Democrats have already chosen New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries to be their next leader. As many of you know by now, Nancy Pelosi has decided to just become a plain old regular congresswoman from San Francisco. So, the Democrats have already figured out who's going to lead them, but the Republicans have not. So, let's see how that happens. And then, of course, if you haven't heard the George Santos mess, I will go on the record, and I have mentioned this privately to a couple of people, that I have reached out to Peter King from Nassau County GOP. I've reached out to Joe Buchanan from Queens County Republican Patriots. And Peter from Nassau GOP had mentioned to me back on, this was Tuesday, because I didn't want to bother him on Monday, because I was like, you know what? Pete's probably still with his family with Christmas. I don't want to bug him till Tuesday. And then Tuesday comes along. I tell Pete, what are we going to do about this George Santos situation that's been transpiring since last week? You know what he tells me? He says to me, do not be surprised if Ann, the Nassau DA, Ann Donnelly, wants to pursue criminal charges for fabricating a story, right? And then we get the word yesterday. Word came out from Newsday that Ann was going to pursue the charges. Excuse the cough. I'm still coming off my cold, but yeah, it's been been crazy the past couple of days. I have not heard from Vicky Palladino. And the reason why I have not reached out to Vicky or any of her staffers about this situation, and I'm going to be completely honest, and I've even told Peter this, Vicky and George were very close with each other. And I told Peter, look, if I call so-and-so staffer, I'm not going to give a name out because then, I can get in trouble with Nassau GOP and then, that could be, ugh. But long story short, I give a name to Peter, speak to so-and-so staffer about this. I don't want to deal with it anymore. So, Peter got back to me, and he's like, oh, so-and-so doesn't even want to comment to me about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not surprised. And it's a mess. It's a big mess. And Anthony D'Esposito, one of our other members of Nassau GOP, who you may know, beat Laura Gillen for his congressional seat. Who else has commented? Mike LaLota, the Republican in Suffolk, has commented. So far, Peter has reached out to Andrew Gabriano. They're very close with each other because remember, they both live in Massapequa. Peter has told me he's not heard from Andrew. So you've heard from one Andrew who lives in Queens, but you don't want to speak to the other Andrew in Massapequa. Well, the other Andrew from Massapequa doesn't want to speak to you. That's how I meant to word it. Because my neighbor's dog is barking. I got distracted there for a second, but it's a mess. It's a mess. I have said to Joe and I have said to Peter that George needs to leave. There needs to be a new election. And both Peter, both Joe know that George is representing Osdom Hall in Congress. So imagine if we need any federal help for Osdom Hall, right? Anything. Because we've had Grace Sming, right? She was in that district, but then we got redistricted, and that was a whole mess. So it's been a big mess. And I wish that George would step down. And I wish that we could have a new election in that 3rd congressional district, because at what point do you say to yourself, you're going to keep fabricating all these lies, you're going to keep, saying all this stuff. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to, and Peter and I have been saying, did you see that Fox? Like, we were talking about the Fox News interview with Tulsi, right? Tulsi Gabbard. Peter told me that when he saw the interview on Fox, he was like, oh, this is going to make Nassau GOP even look more worse. So, he has been upset about this. I can't blame him. Joe and I have had scarce conversations. It's not like Peter King where, Peter King is more open with you. He wants to talk to you. He's more of an open guy. And that's why I respect Peter in Nassau. Versus Joe, it's like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's like, ugh. Queens County Republican Patriots is a whole different ball game to deal with versus the Nassau GOP. Ugh. So the last thing that me and Peter discussed was yesterday was the investigation. And I told Peter, let Ann do her job you were right about this when you spoke to her on Tuesday. Today's Thursday, right? As I'm recording this, because I haven't spoken to Peter since yesterday afternoon via text. So, let's leave it. Let's discuss this maybe sometime next week, because obviously New Year's is coming up. And I told Peter, my main focus right now is focusing on our two other candidates in Nassau, Anthony Esposito and Andrew Gabriano. Let's focus on them. We have a positive. Me and him agreed. Let's focus on them. I'm glad Anthony is still going to Congress. I'm still glad Andrew got another term. And let's see what happens next week. Because, you can't just focus on it as much. But what will happen next week, and this is what will happen for George, is he's going to face a lot of scrutiny. Just like the Tulsi Gabbard interview. And we'll see how it goes from there next week. Okay, so we talked about the economy. We talked about politics briefly. To close out the politics, I just want to mention that if anybody is watching in Suffolk, please be aware that you have a county executive race next year. Your county executive, Steve Bellone, is term limited. He served his 3 terms. He can't run for a 4th. I'm going to reach out to the Suffolk County GOP sometime next year because I want to do some volunteer work. Obviously, I have said to Peter, this was right before Thanksgiving we had this conversation about Suffolk. I don't remember when, but Pete and I agreed that we have to help our neighbors in Suffolk. Because Pete's in Massapequa, Amityville's the next town over, so it's too early to speculate on who could run. The cyber attack thing was a whole big mess. Here in New York City, as many of you know by now, or if you've been living under a rock, we have redistricting that caused the city council to hold a 2-year election. So now we have to vote for city council next year. Queens, obviously Melinda Katz has served her full 4-year term. She has obviously announced that she will be running for a 2nd term as Queens County District Attorney. And of course, we have the town supervisor races. I know everybody knows my beef with Joe Saladino by now. And believe it or not, way back in the summer, somebody told me this at one of the Oyster Bay events in Massapequa, one of the concerts. Somebody told me this randomly. Like, this random guy told me, I know somebody who's close with Joe. He's already running. Don't be surprised if he doesn't run for another term as Oyster Bay Town Supervisor. So we'll see how that goes. Don Clavin is term limited in Hempstead. And then there's town of North Hempstead. So we'll see how that goes next year. I don't want to speculate on that because right now my main focus is next week. I'm going to see how the election goes for Speaker of the House. We'll see how it goes with George Santos. I would hope that George does the right thing and just gives up the seat. And then sometime in the new year, we can focus on getting a good quality Republican candidate who will be truthful and honest, who can serve the district very well. No fabrications, no lies, and we'll go from there. All right, so we got everything out of there. Talked about the economy, we talked about politics, so now we have to focus on other stuff. What's going to happen with Andy's randomness going forward. Well, I'm already planning a couple of projects for the new year. I certainly want to go do what I really want to do. I mean, do I really want to constantly keep talking about politics and the economy as much? Maybe we can do that on a month-by-month basis. Because I don't want to constantly keep calling out elected officials each and every time. So, probably we'll do another update. Probably I'll do a brief one next week. But I gotta try to get back to the parks. I've had so much missed time. Obviously, I'm still trying to go back to the Macy's Flower Show. Because last year was my return. And all the other times I've never filmed it. But I am still hoping to go back in Midtown next year. And what else? Yeah, I'm planning a couple radio reviews. What else do I want to try to focus on, I guess? I'm gonna have to randomly think things out, but I've already come up with some things that I want to do in January. I don't want to say anything because then certain people will take it out of context. And, yeah, that's what we have to discuss for next year. And the last topic that I wanted to discuss is the personal attacks that have been made against me since, of course, I dropped out of my New York State Senate race. As many of you know by now, the personal attacks have been getting worse this past year. And of course, quality of life has not been good in Fresh Meadows overall. I'll just briefly mention that I'm hoping things will get better. I guess 2022 really was the unfortunate year for Fresh Meadows when it came to crime. Of course, the shooting that happened in April gave Fresh Meadows a lot of negative attention, which of course made national headlines. And then, of course, 3 accidents that have happened on my street this year. But yeah, the back on topic, personal attacks have been getting worse. Obviously, I wish that I could be serving in the New York State Senate right now for District 18, but I don't want to get into that. That's a whole different topic that I don't want to discuss again because that gave me a lot of emotional trauma. But since I would say I guess from April 2021, even before I publicly announced I run, and then even after that, I've had a certain individual slander me, and he's been slandering other people on the internet. And if I give his name out, then he's going to be getting a lot of unwanted attention. So let's just leave it as that. But this individual who lives, let's just say he lives in the confines of the 103rd Precinct. Let's just say that, to give a long story short. So this individual who lives in the confines of the 103rd Precinct has been slandering people online, including me. And as you know by now, my address in New York got leaked online. Thankfully, my other address in Maryland did not get leaked. And thank goodness, because imagine if that got leaked. Oh boy, that would be a whole different story, because Maryland's laws are a lot different when it comes to privacy protection. Because if this certain individual did that, believe me, I would have given a phone call to the Worcester County Sheriff's Office in Maryland. And then the Worcester County DA would have gotten involved like that. But this is New York, so we can get... So, because we have a one-party consent rule, you're allowed to dox people's address. Which I am urging Albany, please, in the new session, which obviously this is what I was going to do as a state senator. I was going to propose a law in Albany for two-party consent, where if you give an address, you record a phone call, the other person has to consent to it. In New York, no. We have one-party consent, so we can get away with that. So, I'm urging the Assembly and the Senate to change the rule, because Delaware, Maryland, they have a very strict two-party consent rule. Thankfully, the video where it said, Andy's randomness, oh no! And if I can even find it. Yeah, here it is. Right here. Referencing the song from Encanto, We Don't Talk About Bruno. And yes, my cousin in Great Neck loves that song. In fact, he's even singing it to me. But, yeah, that video thankfully got taken down. And throughout the year, this individual has been doing that. And this certain individual has been, of course, saying that, this YouTuber needs to be arrested for filming. First of all, again, there are cameras at Long Island Railroad train stations and inside the Long Island Railroad train cars. You don't have the right to privacy. Right? Because again, you're in a one-party consent state. Now, if we had rules, especially because Florida has two-party consent too. They do. It's just crazy, right? And this individual has, of course, commented in MTA board and committee meetings. And sometimes I feel that the MTA committee members or the board members, I swear they act like they don't have emotions. I mean, how can you not be angry or upset with somebody being slandered publicly? Because if that happens in a New Jersey Transit meeting, and I know the board members in New Jersey very well, oh, believe me, you get called out. Because they've done that before. They've done that with New Jersey Transit meetings. Even when New Jersey Transit had to transition to teleconference, I forget what meeting this was, but one of the board members was slandered, right? And this board member, I think, called it out. Forget his name at the moment, but he's a really good board member in New Jersey. So the MTA in New York doesn't want to do it. And we clearly know why, because the Wall Street Syndicate that funds the MTA, that's what's going on here. It's disgraceful. And I wish the MTA would change the rules, all right, because recently, I think the moderator this month was saying no personal attacks towards the chairman, Janelle Lieber, right? So you can call that out, but when you call out a person who you're slandering, sorry, we're not going to condone that. So that has to change in the new year. And this individual has also said that, we can't go to the Jamaica train station. First of all, we have every right to be there, especially when the Grand Central Shuttle opens sometime in January. Because we're not going to have direct Grand Central service for three weeks. That's the plan right now. This is what me and Matt Camper from Camper News Network were discussing last week before he took his vacation. And obviously, I don't want to say where he's on vacation right now, but he's on vacation, and well-deserved for Matt Camper, of course. Let's just say he's somewhere much warmer at the moment. But we were discussing this. Think of it as like a production of a Broadway play, right? You know how they advertise previews in the papers and maybe sometimes on TV and the radio? Same analogy. So this certain individual needs to be monitored by the 103rd Precinct, needs to be monitored by the MTA police, because at what point do you say to yourself that this is cyberbullying and he needs to stop it? And again, the reason why I don't give his name, because again, I've learned this. You give somebody unwanted attention, they capitalize on it. And the nerve that he doesn't even want to show his face. Well, he doesn't scare me. All right? I'm not scared by him. Nobody should scare me. All right? So make that very clear. So, I'll make one point very clear. This individual's behavior has enabled other people to capitalize on it. We've had Kevin Stone, I'll give a name out randomly. He really took the cyberbullying next level because of this individual who leaked out my address. And thankfully, all records got deleted of that. Thank goodness. But thankfully we found out where he was. We got him taken off of YouTube. And, all the mean, nasty stuff that he said to this big time YouTuber who has almost 4,000 subscribers. I'm not going to say the channel name for privacy concerns, but you know, the person who runs that channel, who I know very well personally, he's cutting back on his YouTube content. And I can't blame him. So, it's created this negative chain reaction. And just yesterday, another YouTube channel, was re-uploading the president and COO of Passengers United, Charlton D'Souza, when he confronted the Riders Alliance at Barclays Center earlier this year. You know, remember, again, this is how it works in New York. Sorry, you're the one person. You've consented to posting the video online. So, again, and this is what I've learned about New York's laws, because I had a personal situation to deal with the Suffolk County DA earlier this year. You know, when you share stuff online, you know, sadly in the state of New York, you can actually re-upload it. There's only one exception, and I found this out recently, and I know it's going to be controversial to say it. OnlyFans. Yeah, apparently OnlyFans has this strict thing where if you re-upload something, you can actually get in trouble with that content creator. Because they have legal loopholes that they can do for whatever reason. But YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, oh, you can re-upload that. It's so disgusting. You know, and I wish we had a two-party consent rule in New York, but we don't. It's so sad, you know? So, I guess to wrap up this video, I'm just going to say this right now, you know. I wish this individual who leaked my address, who slandered other people, would just stop it already. You know, he needs to be taken off the internet. And another thing, you know, I'm going to call out Kenneth Frember right now. He needs to stop posting misinformation on the internet. Alright? That has to stop too. Because he's going to keep doing it. That I will name call him out because he deserves it. First is the individual who leaked my address. The reason why I don't give out his name, because again, it's unwanted attention. It's enabled behavior. Once you put your behavior out, you do what you do, guess what? Other people are going to take advantage. And that explains why the person who re-uploaded Charlton's video is probably doing it. He thinks it's okay and cool to do it. It's not. So stop it already. Get some help. That includes the individual who leaked my address, the individual who is targeting Charlton, and the individual named Kevin Stone. I'm not going to give his real last name out, but, you know, you need to stop your reckless behavior on the internet, because it's only going to you're only going to make it worse for yourself. And, you know, enough. So, what I hope in the new year, I'm going to wrap up this video by saying, you know, I hope things look a little bit better for Fresh Meadows before I move, because I still feel bad for that girl who got paralyzed and her whole family. you know, the person who was in the hit and run, you know, back on April 1st, you know, they're probably still going through emotional trauma getting hit by that Honda. You know, it's. We have to hope that we can have a better new year. I mean, do I see things improving in Fresh Meadows? You know, it honestly depends if people just speak up and say what's going on. Because thankfully, the Everything Fresh Meadows group is doing that for me on Facebook. But, you know, let's just come together. Let us hope that 2023 will bring a little bit more happiness and maybe a little bit less drama. And, you know, we come together and we all hope for a better new year. All right? So I wish you all a very happy new year, a good and blessed 2023, and I'm certainly hoping that I can make the most out of my time left in New York before I move, because I'm going to make one more announcement right now. And maybe I've said this, maybe I haven't, but maybe you can call me out for it, but there will be some times in 2023 where I won't be posting as much. Maybe there'll be a couple of weeks where there won't be an Andy Plays or videos that you want to see, and there's going to be two reasons. Number one, another thing that I have to do in the new year is go to my other address in Maryland. I have to focus on trying to get there sometime next year. It's hopefully going to be in the summer. And then there's going to be a couple of weeks where it's going to be sporadic, and I'll probably have to announce in the community tab or do a video on it that, you know, how am I going to be able to do videos if I'm going to be moving? All right, how can I do Andy Plays if my consoles are being packed up somewhere? You know, there is going to be a point in 2023 where that's going to likely happen. So, yeah. Again, Happy New Year. Again, let's hope the war in Ukraine finally ends. Let's hope that things look a lot better next year. And, you know, we'll see how things go. And I'm keeping faith that things will be a lot better. So I've gone on too long. Again, Happy New Year. Thank you for watching. And, again, let's hope that we all together have a better 2023.